Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Time. I am with my buddy again, Ryan Eaton. And today I want to talk about financial advice and practical things and thoughts, really, that we could kind of flesh out. I listened to this podcast. They gave 10 thoughts on finances. I thought each one of them were interesting. I don't know if I would have said each one kind of the way they said it, so I kind of got the gist of it. But I thought this would be a good conversation to flesh out with somebody who I've had many conversations with this about. And I know me and you are kind of tracking along the same way with finances. We long to be a blessing.
That's right.
We long to be good stewards, and we've had enough of a career to learn what worked and things we do different. So right. with both of those things in mind, what worked and things we would do different. I'm just going to kind of read out these things and let's kind of discuss these thoughts. So the first thought that they had was focus on earning more versus spending less. And their thought behind this is like, okay, budgeting is good, but oftentimes budgeting makes me think about less. Cutting.
Yep.
And their point is that with budgeting, it's really easy when you think about like, where could I save money? That's an easy question. You can do that anytime of like, I could cut that. But they said a lot of the wealthy people that they know or people who are walking in financial advice, while they think about budgeting, it's done almost differently. They think about how much they want to earn, and then they automate their savings, and they automate their giving, and then they just kind of live off the rest. And out of that, they kind of know like what that looks like and that type of thing, but their focus is on earning more. And the concept is, if I ask a better question, like how can I make blank next year? That you'll get a better answer. And to save money, it's like, where could I cut? You can figure that out, but it doesn't require a lot of creativity. And I would say it doesn't really require the Holy Spirit. Like, I'm sure he can help you. But I think like if you ask him a better question, like Father, for your kingdom, Father, for my family, Father, for your name. How could I take this to this level? That does open up the guidance of the Holy Spirit and creativity from our own heart. What's your thoughts on that?
I love it. I mean, that makes so much sense. I mean, from the standpoint, whatever you focus on typically grows, right? So if you're focusing more on earning than you are cutting, spending, budgeting, reducing, getting rid of, you're going to focus on the earning more. And if you're earning more, cutting is not as important the more you're earning. So that makes perfect sense to me. This past year for me, I really focused on increasing it. Very similar to what you're saying. I didn't focus on the cutting side of it. I focused on how can I earn more, and I was able to see some miraculous things happen just from the standpoint of focus. And it's one of those things that it kind of goes along with this, but there's a quote that I love that says, "When things are going good, distractions will show up at your door dressed like opportunities." And I think it's one of those things that if you're focused on spending, you're focused on distractions instead of the real thing that you want to earn more income to be able to do more, right? And because it's do more for the kingdom, do more for my kids, do more for experiences with the family. That's what I think a lot of people are thinking about. And it's not just about money, it's what can those resources do. And so I think that focus is key. And I love it.
When in the process of you thinking about that, or even when you're thinking about that for your business and for do you think about certain numbers and like compare that, okay, last year I made blank and then next year I'd like to make blank. Is that just kind of how that process works for you?
I'm a geek when it comes to this. I'm not very OCD on a lot of things, but I'm OCD on finances. I just say it. I grew up as with a father that was a CPA. It just is what it is. But I look at it. I measure everything. I look at it on a quarterly basis, and I can tell you the past 10 years how I've grown by quarter. What maybe my net worth increased or decreased or whatever the case was. I can tell you what investments I made and why and all the different things. I track it so I can go back and look, and hopefully it'll be a roadmap for my kids one day too. They can kind of look at some different things. But I believe in you have to inspect what you expect. And if you're trying to get to that,
you have to
inspect what you expect. That's right. So if you're trying to get to this level, you got to look at it on a regular basis. And whatever's it, there's a guy, Grant Cardone, big real estate investor, and does some other stuff. He writes his goals every single day. And he does that because he wants to keep it at the forefront of his mind, back to the focus, right? And he's one of the ones as well that says that. He said, you need to focus on how to increase your income, not to cut expenses. If you focus on growing your income, you don't have to worry as much about your expenses. Not that you can live like an idiot, but at the same time, you're fixing the problem. You're just not fixing it by cutting, you're fixing it by growing.
Yes.
And so that's similar to what he says on that front as well.
I like it. So, and that's something that I would suggest everybody do as far as, like you said, set up those expectations of, okay, next year, next quarter, next whatever, I'd like to increase my income by blank. I'd like to increase my revenues by blank. I'd like to hit this sales goal, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And lead that with a dominant focus.
Yeah. And I would say as well too, on that front, focus on the income, but also focus on the net worth side of it as well, at least for personal finances, obviously sales numbers and other things. But, if you're just making more and you're spending it all, you're in a rat race. Yep. And so make sure that you're, the extra money that you make, that you have it going back into something that generates you more money.
Yes.
And then you're working while you're sleeping, basically. Yes. So your money's working for you.
I like it. Number 2, and these are things like the context of this is things that you might not be doing that are subtle but can make a difference. And they said, outsource things that free you up to focus on growth, meaning there are some things that we do that maybe we could outsource. Yeah. And, there are many different examples of that. Maybe it's yard work or, other types of things. That it's like if I outsource blank, then that frees up my mind to be able to focus on growth opportunities or growing some of those income opportunities. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I'm a weirdo. I love cutting my grass, and that's one of those things I don't like to farm out. But yes, I agree 100%. I heard someone say last week, they said there's certain things you can't outsource. You can't outsource time with your family.
Yes.
You can't outsource your spirituality. You can't outsource your own push-ups. And you can't outsource what you put into your body.
Yes.
Right? But everything else can be outsourced. And if those things are all important, very, very important. So if you focus on those, doing that, and outsource the other things, you can become better at all those. And I think finances is kind of one of those. You can outsource some of your finances, but no one's going to care about them like you do.
Right.
And so that's one of those things I do. I think you outsource what you can. Yeah. I even looked at this year. I think people have outsourced going to the grocery store. Or they don't look at it like that, but so many people get the groceries delivered to their house, right? Yes. Maybe it's extra $5 or $10, or maybe they just pick them up, and so they don't have to go in the store, and they drive up and they put them in the trunk.
Well, now with Amazon and things like that, there's all kinds of opportunities.
That's right.
I think one of the things that I noticed with a lot of their advice is like you're trying to free up your heart and your mind to really be creative with where you're taking life and taking it there on purpose.
I love it.
So
I think that's great.
Okay. Number 3, and this was interesting to me because maybe they are Christian, but it wasn't like a Christian like advice or podcast or things like that. But of course we believe this, but it's 3 words are powerful. And they said, you will never rise higher than your money talk. And that type of thing.
That's good.
So I'm like, okay.
I like that.
But we see from the context of Scripture that life and death are in the power of the tongue.
That's right.
You'll eat the fruit of your mouth. That Jesus taught us to speak to the mountain.
That's right.
Obviously prayer is a big part of our language. And, I don't want people to think that like life is all about money and resources. We know that. And we say that often. In fact, the last time we were together, we talked about that rich really isn't a number. Rich is meaningful relationships.
That's right.
A strong connection with God and others. But we also know poverty is a curse.
Yep.
And when we are walking in a blessed place, we are able to be a blessing. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that so many people's money talk is wrong.
Yep.
Like, is it easy or is it hard? Is it frustrating or is it flowing?
Yep.
Is it something you never have enough of, or is it something there's a grace on my life for it?
Yep.
But I thought that phrase was interesting. I'll never rise financially higher than my money talk.
Yep.
That my words are kind of setting a limit there. What comes to your mind when you hear that?
First thing that came to my mind when you said that was I can't afford that versus that's not a wise use of my money right now. And it's how you say things, and it's a mindset, right?
Yes.
And it's just how you approach that.
I love that.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But let's not,
But it is made from it.
That's right. Well played. Well played. Yes, I mean, I think comments like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's where's your mindset?
It's speaking to your own heart.
That's right.
About what is your reality.
That's
and
right.
I think none of us will rise higher than the words that are written on our own heart.
Oh, that's good.
But that one statement, like, I can't afford that, versus that's not a wise use of my money right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what a beautiful way to kind of phrase that, because it speaks to me like, I will be wise, I will be a good steward.
That's right.
But I'm not going to talk about lack. I'm going to talk about I'm investing my money and taking it in the right direction. That's strong language around that subject, and I like that a lot. Yeah.
Love it.
All right. So 4, they said, have nicer things, but way less things. And they said this: if nicer things will bring peace and joy, money brings things, or many things brings clutter and frustration. Don't accumulate a lot of junk or things that don't bring joy or peace. Focus on a few things that you really enjoy, that when you have them, it really adds value to you. And, I believe in like the simplicity of life, and the simplicity that I think is shown in the life of Jesus. We see him be able to really enjoy his friends and enjoy his family. We see him, not mind, like in the story of the prodigal, of a fatted calf or the best robe.
That's right.
Or ring on finger. Like, God is a father. He wants us to have, things that bring us joy and peace, and things that, are healthy for our souls. But I have seen of like that sin of overconsumption.
Oh, man.
Of like, it's one thing for me to enjoy a good steak. It's one thing for me to eat every single dessert, every single meal.
That's right.
Wherever there is overconsumption, typically there is something that's unhealthy. If there's overconsumption of food, it can equal an unhealthy body. But we can't take that to an extreme and be like, I can't ever eat a piece of cake, or
That's
I can't
right.
ever eat, whatever it may be. I think the same thing is true financially, of like really learning delayed desire.
Yes.
That when I get it, it really means something.
That's right.
And I'm not rushing out to get all this kind of thing, but like when I get it, like I really do enjoy it.
That's right.
But I'm not just consuming all of these things on my just lust and
right.
I want it, so I go out and get it, and
Yeah.
that type of thing.
I'd agree with that statement too. That's a good podcast. I want to get that whenever we get done. Send that to me. I know a guy who, and it's not overconsumption.
Yeah.
But he had his house, had a hunting camp, had a condo, had a place in the mountains, etc. Had a beach or a lake house too, where he goes ski. He had 5 places, and these 5 places, every time I talked to him, he was going to fix something, going to get someone to repair something, going to do this. There's headache with stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that as well. That with consumption, with things, anything good,
Yes.
there's work attached to it.
Yes.
And so there's something to be said that too. It takes your time, it'll start draining you, or then become something you're frustrated about, etc. I agree. There's nothing wrong with having anything nice, and there are good things and quality things and things that can last, things you can even pass down to your kids.
Yep.
But even in my silly example, I like guns and have different guns. Well, you got to clean all those suckers, and scopes get off because kids bump them, and someone borrows them, and stuff happens. I mean, it's more to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that not overconsumption is a bad thing in just
Yeah.
about any area. But at the same time, having more things,
Yes.
it doesn't make you happier. It might be cool, but there's a value in renting something, or just going over here and doing that, and not feeling like you have to own it all.
Yes. And then like, because I think you have in spirituality, it's funny to me, like the ditches on both sides of
Yeah.
like, you can't have anything.
That's right.
And that type of thing. And then the other thing that evolves over into go after everything and
Yeah.
that type of thing. But like coming back and just realizing, no, hope deferred makes the heart sick.
Mm-hmm.
A desire fulfilled is a tree of life. God's a God of meeting our needs, but God is also a God of fulfilling our desires. And that if I have this thing, okay, it's like I never want to get into overconsumption, and we shouldn't. It will breed unhealth in
That's
me.
right.
Jesus told the parable of a man's ground who brought forth richly. It's like, what will I do? And sin of overconsumption. I'll tear down everything and just build everything greater for myself. It's like, no. But at the same time, it's like when the son did come home, like I said, he's like, fatted calf, best robe.
Yep.
Like, let's remember this moment. Like, let's really have this mean something. And I think one of the things I've realized in my own soul is, for a while I kind of went that other way of like, I don't want anything, I don't have any desires. And I really saw the Lord kind of bring that back in my life of like, son, like, I want you to have moments where you see something in your life that is a desire fulfilled.
Yep.
Because it will be a tree of life. And like when you have these moments where you've saved, or it's come up and it's increased,
That's right.
Celebrate.
It's a
like
blessing.
Have something that is nice, that does minister life to your soul. And that's all on different levels for different people.
That's
but whatever level you're at, find what that is and let that be ministry to you, and really enjoy it and give God thanks for it.
Very good.
Number 5, and this comes back to kind of the first two, lower your stimuli. And basically what they were talking about is with the rise of social media, with the rise of digital apps, we can watch TV anywhere, we can watch movies anywhere, we can play video games anywhere, we can check social media anywhere, we can work anywhere, all these types of things. Our brain has so much stimuli that there's no room for it to focus on growth.
That's good.
Kind of like Christmas time, there's no room in the end, because there's so much going through up there that I'm not really thinking about opportunities for growth, and I'm not really seeing where I can take my life. And so they said, get away from your phone, turn it off. Don't watch a ton of news or social media. Sit in silence, listen to your heart. Meditate. And they said for them, and once again, this was in a Christian podcast, we're like, answers will come. Answers will come on where to take your life, but they come when you lower that stimuli, sit by a lake, do something, get in nature, but like listen to your heart and run those questions through your heart, and answers will come. What are your thoughts on that?
I've never thought of that like that, but I agree with it. And then, not trying to turn this just necessarily just to a biblical perspective, but you think about the Lord. Well, he got mountains, got by the lake, got away from the disciples, reduced stimuli, and I think that's important for us in this, especially the world that we live in now with technology. I think it's good to put a do not disturb on, maybe from 9 to 9, right? Or 7 to 7, whatever the case may be. Block that stuff off. Put your phone down. Set screen times if you like playing that game or reading that app or looking at social media. Set timers on there. We have the tools to be able to do it. We just have to implement that, because I agree with you. The news, we've cut off the news completely at our house. We just don't even watch it anymore. And I think the same thing for all the other stuff, because it's so easy to get distracted. And then if you do lower your stimuli, your mind has time to focus on, back to number 1, how to create more income. But if you're always thinking about other things, your focus isn't going to be on maybe what the number 1 thing was, is how to increase your net worth. So, from that, I agree.
Where would you say a lot of your ideas come from for like business or things that you're doing to take your family forward or that type of thing? Have you noticed any correlation between a specific activity and where answers like that are coming?
Being around people like you. In all fairness, I don't say that to butter you up, but being around sharp people, being around mentors, being around other people successful in business, getting around, the iron sharpens iron type principle, getting around people who are winning and whatever they're doing. They have some type of traits around them that are moving them forward. So I want to get around them and see what rubs off on me just from being a part of them. And so stuff like that, to me, who's doing something good I'm in the insurance market. What carriers are doing stuff better than other people? What TPAs are processing and handling administration better? What sales teams continue to have record growth each year? How can I find out who their leaders are and be around those guys? Because I'm gonna learn stuff from them that I can take back and implement into my area.
I like it. Which brings me to the next one, and we'll close and we'll pick back up in another coffee time. But that ties in so well with the next point. It was get wisdom, and their point was, when you get wisdom, you will see things that others don't see because you've trained your eye to see it. And they use the example of, they're in the real estate industry, and they were sitting in a restaurant and they overheard at the table next to them these people talking about this apartment complex.
Yeah.
They said for the normal person, they would just hear them talking about an apartment complex. For me, I was hearing an opportunity because I've read about that so much. I'm in that field so much. I'm talking with people so much about that the whole time they're talking, I'm like, this is an opportunity for me. So he said when they got up and left, I walked out and started talking to them, and sure enough, it was an opportunity for them. But his point is that sounds, very elaborate, but he's like, no, I've trained my ear to hear in that area. And I thought that was very interesting. We know, Proverbs is God's success book. One of the major things it emphasizes is that wisdom is the principal thing.
Yep.
It needs to be courted in our life. It needs to be pursued. And like what you were talking about just then of like getting around people who are full of wisdom, getting around people who are winning in different areas of life. And that's one of the things that I've seen is I've got some people in my life, they're winning spiritually. I've got some people in my life, they're winning relationally. I've got some people in my life, they're winning financially. But when I get around them, I genuinely get sharpened by them. So, and thinking about that, what have you seen with that outside of like being around people and getting wisdom? What place does that have in your life? And
man, I think we all know read, right? Leaders are learners, in life. We want to make sure we're learning. We want to make sure, I think getting around people is another one. But I would say, yes, you got to be growing yourself mentally, spiritually, physically, all that type of stuff. But wisdom is the chief thing, right? Yes. Like if you get what you will know how to handle this situation or that situation. I don't like listening to problems, but I love hearing people say in the insurance industry, oh, well, no one's doing this. Yeah. No one's doing, and it's like, why can't we do that? Mm-hmm. And what type of a need is that going to solve? Is it really big, or is this just one person's problem, or is everyone having this problem? We rolled out a new product this year that, there was nothing like it in the market. I think it's got the potential to be able to change the insurance landscape for individuals on the health insurance side. And it's one of those things, we've heard people talk about it for years, and finally it was like, okay, we've heard people talk about this, it's time for us to take action. Yeah. And so listening as well is part of that wisdom, listening to because if you're talking, you're not learning, right? Yeah. So listening to what other people say and listening to their problems, how can I take that problem and create something that's a marketable idea to be able to, back to number one, generate more income, you know?
Well, and I think like one of the things that I've seen you do exceptionally well in your life is prioritize wisdom in different ways. And I think, like you said, for reading, that's a big part of my life. Yep. But not everyone really learns through just reading and processing information that way. But I've noticed you are a very good learner through audio and through talking. So listening to books on tape, and then you are very relational. But those relationships are designed to be a source of wisdom. Yep. That it's not just designed to be a source of friendship, but you're very good at asking good questions, at checking in on things. What are you learning? What are you reading? That type of thing. And I think that's a very interesting way to kind of go about it too, of really working wisdom through relationships and that type of thing.
Well, I think about if I can get with you and you just read a book. What'd you get out of
power hacking?
What did you get out of that book? Knock that one off the list. So, I do. I like Audible. I probably it's because I have problems sitting still for long periods of time. Yeah. So at least with Audible, I can get up and mow the grass or do something else along those lines. But yeah, whatever you can learn from other people, to me, that's my way. And some people, my uncle loves magazines. He doesn't really like to read books, but he likes everyone can consume information in different bits. So doesn't have to be a book, doesn't have to be Audible, doesn't have to be a magazine, doesn't have to be Wall Street Journal, doesn't have to be this or that. However you consume information, good. Maybe it's a YouTube video, maybe whatever the case may be, but everyone consumes in a certain way. Just consume in the method that suits you best, but make sure you're consuming good information, but not overstimulating on the wrong stuff, right? Be focused and intentional about it, and that intentionality is where you really learn.
I like it. All right. Well, we'll pick up on another session with this. I want everyone to keep this conversation within perspective. Obviously, we're talking about financial things. We know that's a big part of our life. Jesus taught about finances and money a lot. But we want you to get financial advice with a Christian bent towards it. We don't want the chief financial advice that you're getting to be coming from people who have no heart from God and no heart for his kingdom. So hopefully this helps you in some way. And if so, check out part 2.